Have you ever noticed how the very day meant to celebrate your life can suddenly feel like a heavy, quiet weight? What if the hardest day of the year is not the one where something goes wrong, but the day the calendar simply turns, announcing your birthday? There is a strange kind of grief that comes with getting older. You wake up, people wish you well. There may be smiles and messages from friends, but deep inside, in the quiet spaces of your mind, there is a breathless panic. Another year has passed. The mind begins its familiar, painful race, measuring where you are right now against where you firmly believed you would be. You look in the mirror and wonder where the time went. The unspoken fears rise to the surface. Am I too late? Have I wasted another year? Why do I still feel so unanchored while everyone else seems to have found their shore? If you have ever felt this sudden rush of anxiety on a day that is supposed to be joyous, if you have ever wanted to hide from your own birthday, this is for you. Buddhist wisdom teaches us that suffering does not come from the simple fact that time is passing. The passing of time is as natural as the changing of the seasons. The suffering comes from our attachment to how we believe time should have unfolded. We suffer because we tightly hold on to a rigid, invisible script in our minds, a story of what our life was supposed to look like, what we were supposed to have achieved, and who we were supposed to be by this exact age. And when reality does not match that deeply held script, the mind creates a painful friction. We call this friction regret. Imagine a river flowing steadily toward the ocean. The river does not panic because it has not yet reached the sea. It simply flows, following the shape of the earth. But imagine if the river suddenly decided it should have reached the ocean miles ago. It begins to fight its own current. It crashes against the rocks, exhausting itself, trying to rush forward. The river's distress is not caused by the journey. It is caused by the sudden, false belief that it is behind. We do this to ourselves constantly. We live in a world that pushes us to measure our worth by artificial deadlines. The pressure to succeed by a certain age, the silent, heavy comparison when you see others hitting milestones you are still desperately waiting for. When your birthday arrives, it acts as a harsh magnifying glass on everything you feel you lack. The panic sets in. You feel a sudden urge to fix everything at once, to rush, to force things to happen. Or worse, you feel the urge to quietly abandon yourself out of deep shame. But ask yourself right now, what are you actually afraid of on this day? Are you afraid of the passing of time, or are you afraid that you are somehow failing at life? Is this panic bringing you closer to peace, or is it only feeding your fear? Pause. Breathe. Observe this heavy feeling without following it into the dark. Let the feeling of panic rise, but do not make it your identity. You do not have to fix your entire life today. You do not have to have all the answers just because the calendar changed. You are allowed to be exactly where you are, feeling exactly what you feel, without judging yourself for it. Your worth is not measured by the milestones you have crossed. Peace is not found in desperately trying to catch up to an imaginary timeline. It is found in making space for the reality of this very moment. But understanding this panic is only the first step on the path, because beneath this fear of passing time lies a deeper, more punishing illusion that keeps you trapped. And this is where the next truth begins. What if the concept of being behind in life is entirely made up? Here is a truth that few people want to face on their birthday. There is no universal clock ticking down your worth. The heavy, sinking feeling that you have missed the train, that you are somehow late to your own life, is nothing but a ghost created by a restless mind. We feel this most sharply when the birthday messages fade, and we are left alone in the quiet of our rooms. We look out at the world, or we scroll through the curated lives of others on a screen. Someone is celebrating a promotion, another is building a family, another seems so incredibly certain of who they are, And there you sit, fighting the same internal battles you fought last year, wondering why your life feels like it is moving in slow motion. The mind spins into a dark comparison trap. You feel a deep, burning shame, convinced that you have done something wrong, that you have wasted your potential. But Buddhist wisdom reminds us that comparison is a violent thief of inner peace. In Buddhist thought, suffering arises when we reject our current reality in favor of a delusion. The delusion here is the perfect timeline, a rigid, artificial set of rules created by society dictating where you should be by 25, 30, or 50. But the universe does not operate on human schedules. To believe you are behind is to believe that every soul is walking the exact same path, carrying the exact same karma, heading to the exact same destination. Imagine walking through a vast, ancient forest. You do not look at a towering oak tree and judge it for not being a pine. You do not look at a bamboo seed, which spends years growing its root system invisibly underground before suddenly shooting toward the sky, and call it a failure for taking its time. In the dark, the bamboo is not behind the oak, the pine is not ahead of the fern. Each living thing follows its own nature, responding to the soil, the storms, and the light it has been given. Yet, when it comes to our own lives, we are fiercely cruel to ourselves. We expect to bloom before we have even established our roots. We judge our quiet, messy periods of inner growth as failures simply because they cannot be neatly packaged and shown to the world. We let the pressure of external success turn a day of life into a harsh deadline. Think about your own life right now. Whose timeline are you actually trying to follow? When you silently tell yourself that you are falling behind, who exactly are you racing against? Is this heavy pressure truly your own, or is it a burden that the world handed to you, and you simply forgot to put it down? Pause, breathe, take off that heavy coat of expectations. Look at where you are right now, not as a place of failure, but as a place of deep, quiet root building. You are not late. You are navigating the exact terrain. You need to walk to learn the lessons this chapter holds. Do your part, then release the outcome. Do not punish yourself. For the time it takes to heal, to figure it out, to find your footing, letting go of the illusion of being behind frees you from the exhaustion of the race. But once the noise of comparison fades, we are often left alone with something much heavier, the echoing voices of our past choices. And this is where the next truth begins. What if regret is not a punishment for your past, but a quiet, misunderstood teacher waiting for you to finally listen? Here is the truth we often ignore when we look back on our lives. On our birthdays, our mind inevitably travels backward. We look at the years we have lived, and suddenly the ghosts of old choices appear. We replay the conversations we should have handled differently. We mourn the years we spent trying to force the wrong relationship to work. We feel a deep, aching sorrow for the dreams we abandoned out of fear, or the time we lost simply trying to survive emotional exhaustion. We use regret as a heavy weapon, striking ourselves over and over for not knowing better when we were younger. Buddhist wisdom teaches us that suffering arises when we cling tightly to what is already gone. In Buddhist thought, the past is an illusion, an echo that no longer exists anywhere except within our own minds. When we hold on to regret with bitterness, we are fighting a battle that has already ended. We are refusing to accept the reality of impermanence. One of the deepest lessons of Buddhism is that you are not the same person who made those mistakes. Just as a river is never the same water twice, you are constantly changing. Yet, we believe that if we just feel bad enough, if we punish ourselves long enough, we can somehow balance the scales and fix what was broken. Imagine a person walking a long road, carrying a heavy, jagged stone in their hands. The stone is sharp. It cuts into their skin, making their hands bleed and their arms ache. They carry it everywhere they go, believing they must hold it because it belongs to them. A traveler passes by and asks, "Why do you hold that stone when it causes you such deep pain?" And the person replies, "Because it is my mistake. I made it, so I must carry it." We do exactly this in our modern lives. We carry the heavy stones of our missed opportunities, our failed relationships, and our moments of weakness. When we see others succeeding, we punish ourselves for the years we spent battling anxiety or the decade we gave to a career that drained our spirit. We think that carrying the pain of regret proves that we care, that we are taking responsibility. But holding a jagged stone does not change the road behind you. It only destroys your hands in the present, leaving you too wounded to build anything new. Think about your own life. What jagged stone are you still carrying? When you feel that birthday panic, what past version of yourself are you still secretly refusing to forgive? Are you letting your regret teach you, or are you letting it define you? Pause, breathe. Let the memory of the past rise, but do not make it your home. Acknowledge the regret. Look at it clearly. Say to it, "I see you. I have learned from you, but I no longer need to carry you." Do your part, then release the stone. Regret is meant to be a mirror, reflecting the wisdom you have gained, not a chain holding you back from the life you still have left to live. Let regret show you what you value now, and then let it go. Because when regret shifts from a passing lesson into a permanent state of self-punishment, it leads us toward a deeply destructive path. We start to turn our backs on our own soul, and this is where the next truth begins. What if the greatest harm you have ever suffered was not caused by the hands of another, but by the quiet ways you learned to walk away from yourself? Here is the truth few people want to face when the birthday panic sets in. The deep, breathless anxiety you feel is not just about time passing. It is an alarm bell ringing from deep within, warning you that you have left yourself behind again. We do this in small, almost invisible ways. We stay in connections where we feel utterly unseen, just to avoid the heavy, echoing silence of being alone. We mold our personalities to seek approval, swallowing our own words to keep the peace. We numb our emotional exhaustion by working harder, striving for external success, to prove our worth to a world that is not paying attention. And when that birthday arrives, the sudden grief we feel is not just about aging. It is the heartbreaking realization that another year has passed where we put our true selves last. We feel disconnected, floating, and untethered from our own lives. Buddhist wisdom teaches us the profound practice of taking refuge, but true refuge is not a place you run to escape the world. It is the courage to return to yourself. In Buddhist thought, suffering multiplies when we abandon our own center to chase external safety. We become deeply attached to how others view us, seeking shelter in their validation. When we do this, we abandon the quiet, steady awareness within us. We trade our inner peace for the chaotic, changing noise of the world. Imagine a warm, well-lit house standing in the middle of a vast, open field. This house is your inner being. A storm begins to roll in the winds of anxiety, the heavy rain of comparison, the loud thunder of passing time. Instead of staying inside by the steady fire, you panic. You run out into the freezing storm, lock the door behind you, and wander the dark field. You knock on the doors of strangers, begging for a small corner of warmth, enduring the freezing rain, completely forgetting that you hold the key to a perfectly safe, warm home. In our modern lives, we run into the storm constantly. We abandon our own house when we let fear dictate our choices. We run outside when we let a harsh criticism define our worth, or when we twist ourselves into knots trying to force someone to stay who is already leaving. When the panic of aging hits, our first instinct is to run faster, fix harder, and look outward for a quick distraction, to numb the uncomfortable feelings. We abandon our own pain instead of sitting with it. Think about your own life right now. In what ways are you still running out into the freezing rain? When you feel the heavy weight of another year passing, do you stay with yourself, or do you abandon your own needs to quiet the fear? What are you afraid you will find if you finally unlock the door and sit alone with yourself? Pause. Breathe. Come back into your own house. When the panic rises, do not abandon yourself to fix it. Let the feeling rise without making it your master. You are not powerless. You do not have to betray your own peace to find safety. Stay with the discomfort. Stand by your own side through the anxiety, because peace is not found by running away from your own life. It is found the moment you decide that, no matter how fiercely the storm rages, you will never abandon yourself again. But deciding to stay is only the beginning, because to truly live within that house, you must change how you see the relentless ticking clock of life. And this is where the next truth begins. What if the life you are so deeply grieving today never actually existed at all? Here is a truth that can crack open the heavy chest of birthday anxiety. The perfect timeline you are constantly measuring yourself against is a ghost. We suffer deeply when another year passes because we feel we are failing a schedule we silently agreed to long ago. A schedule that whispers that by this age, the path should be clear, the love should be found, the financial struggles should be over, and the mind should finally be at peace. When we wake up and look around, only to find our reality does not match this rigid script, panic sets in. We feel a profound sense of loss. But we are not mourning what we have lost. We are mourning an illusion. Buddhist wisdom teaches the profound truth of impermanence. Everything is in a constant, beautiful state of flux. The seasons shift, the light fades into dark, and our lives unfold in unpredictable, unwritten rhythms. Buddhism reminds us that our deepest suffering comes from clinging to permanence in a wildly impermanent world. We try to freeze time, forcing our lives into a straight, predictable line of upward progress. But a human life is not a straight line on a graph. It is a breathing, moving, unfolding experience. Imagine a strong, ancient tree standing in a quiet forest as autumn approaches. The air grows sharp and cold. The leaves begin to turn brown and loosen from the branches. Now, imagine if the tree suddenly panicked. Imagine if it desperately clenched its branches, trying to tightly hold onto the dying leaves, terrified that if it let them fall, it would be bare, exposed, and worthless. The tree would exhaust itself fighting the natural cycle of the world. It would suffer deeply, not because winter is coming, but because it refuses to let the seasons change. We do this every time. We resist the natural transitions of our own lives. We violently cling to old versions of ourselves. We panic when a long-term relationship ends, when a career path crumbles, or when we find ourselves completely starting over, in our 30s, 40s, or beyond. We treat these transitions as tragic delays on our perfect timeline, rather than natural seasons of shedding what no longer serves us. We feel completely behind in life because we are terrified of our own winter, forgetting that bare branches are the only way nature makes space for new spring growth. Ask yourself right now, what rigid timeline are you still trying to force your life into? What dead leaves are you exhausting yourself trying to hold on to, simply because you are afraid of the empty space they will leave behind? Are you suffering because of your actual life, or because of your expectations of what your life was supposed to be? Pause, breathe, let the imaginary timeline dissolve. Stop demanding that your life match a script written by a younger version of yourself who did not know the storms you would have to survive. Let the season change. Let the leaves fall. You do not need to have it all perfectly built by today. You are allowed to be in a season of rebuilding, or resting, or simply waiting in the quiet dark. But letting go of the perfect timeline requires us to surrender our tight, anxious grip on the wheel, because trying to force life to speed up only deepens our quiet exhaustion. And this is where the next truth begins. What if the deep exhaustion you feel today is not from the journey itself, but from constantly trying to push the river? Here is a difficult truth about the panic that strikes when another year passes. Our immediate instinct is to fight it by forcing action. We look at the gap between where we are and where we desperately want to be, and we try to manipulate time. We try to force the relationship to figure itself out immediately. We try to forcefully accelerate our career to make up for what we perceive as lost years. We demand that our emotional healing finish by a certain date. We live in a state of tight, anxious urgency, believing that if we just worry enough, plan enough, or stress enough, we can bend life to our exact will. Buddhist wisdom teaches us about the profound suffering caused by the illusion of control. We suffer because we fail to separate what is ours to act upon from what is entirely up to the unfolding of time. Buddhism reminds us that while we have the power to plant the seed, we cannot pull on the stem to make it grow faster. The universe operates on its own silent, mysterious rhythms. Trying to control the exact timing of your life is like trying to hold the wind in your closed fists. The tighter you squeeze, the more empty your hands become. Imagine a traveler in a small boat, moving down a massive, ancient river. The river is deep. It has its own strong currents, its own quiet bends, and its own natural speed. But the traveler is terrified of being late to their destination. So, they lean over the edge of the boat, plunging their bare hands into the water, violently pushing the river to make it flow faster. They splash, they fight, they gasp for breath, completely draining their energy. And yet, the massive river moves at the exact same pace it always did. The travelers' frantic pushing did not change the speed of the water at all. It only destroyed their own peace. We are pushing the river in our own lives every single day. We do this when we try to rush our grieving process, angry at ourselves for still feeling broken months or years after a loss. We do this when we feel behind on our birthday, suddenly working ourselves to the bone to prove our worth to people who are not even watching. We exhaust ourselves trying to force the future to arrive right now, forgetting that true growth happens quietly, in its own time. We look at our blistered, tired hands and weep out of pure exhaustion, blaming the river for our pain. Think about your own life. Where are you leaning over the edge of the boat? What are you desperately trying to speed up? What are you exhausting yourself trying to control? What if you simply pulled your hands out of the cold water, sat back, and trusted the current? Pause, breathe. Stop trying to force the heavy door open. You do not need to command the flow of time. You only need to navigate the waters of this exact moment. Put down the heavy burden of trying to control when your success, your love, or your healing will fully arrive. Do your part, row gently, then release the outcome. Let life meet you where you are. Letting go of the need to control the future finally allows you to rest. But as you sit quietly in the boat, resting your tired hands, another shadow often rises from the water. The mind turns its harsh judgment backward, looking at the person who rode you into the storms of the past. And this is where the next truth begins. 7. Forgiving your past selves. What if the person you are most furious with on this birthday is someone who no longer exists? Here is a painful truth about the panic of passing time. When we realize another year is gone, our mind searches for someone to blame. for the fact that we have not yet arrived at our perfect destination. And almost always, the target of our deepest rage is our own past self. We look backward, and we judge the earlier versions of us with brutal, merciless clarity. We hate the version of us who stayed in that draining relationship far too long. We are deeply angry at the version of us who shrank away from a big opportunity out of fear. We carry a heavy, silent bitterness toward the younger self who did not set boundaries, who chased the wrong dreams, or who simply wasted time. Buddhist wisdom teaches the profound practice of loving kindness, which must first be directed inward. In Buddhist thought, the self is not a fixed, solid object. You are a continuously flowing stream of consciousness, shaped by every passing moment. The person you were 5 years ago, or even last year, is not the person you are today. You are judging a past version of yourself, using the wisdom that you only gained because of the mistakes that very person made. To hate your past self is to strike the soil for being muddy, forgetting that the mud is exactly what allowed the lotus to grow. Imagine a traveler lost in a dark, dense forest in the middle of the night. They have no map, no light, and no guide. They stumble through thorns, take the wrong path, and scrape their hands on the rocks, just trying to survive the night. When morning finally breaks and the sun illuminates the forest, the traveler looks back from a high hill and sees a clear, safe path they could have taken. Instead of feeling relief, they begin to violently beat themselves for not taking the easy road. When it was dark, they scream at their past self for stumbling, completely ignoring the fact that they were walking completely blind. We are that traveler. In our modern lives, we look back at the dark forests of our past chapters, and we judge our survival tactics. We punish ourselves for how we handled heartbreak, for our financial stumbles, for the times we numbed our emotional exhaustion, or for the years we spent desperately trying to please others. We use our current clarity as a weapon against the exhausted, confused person we used to be. We abandon our past selves, leaving them stranded in our memories without an ounce of grace. Think about your own life. When you feel the panic of getting older today, what past mistake is flashing in your mind? If that younger, scared, exhausted version of yourself were standing in front of you right now, would you continue to strike them? Or would you finally realize they were just doing the absolute best they could with the light they had at the time? Pause, breathe, drop the weapon of hindsight. Forgive the you who did not know better. Forgive the you who was too scared to speak up. Forgive the you who broke your own heart trying to find safety. They walked through the dark so you could stand here in the light. Acknowledge their struggle, thank them for surviving, and then gently let them go. You cannot build a peaceful present while actively waging war on your past. But once you finally forgive yourself and lay down the heavy armor of regret, you are often left sitting in a quiet, deeply uncomfortable space. A space where your old expectations have faded and nothing has arrived to replace them yet. And this is where the next truth begins. What if the empty spaces in your life are not signs of failure, but quiet spaces waiting for a different kind of light? Here is a truth we rarely speak about when the calendar turns. On our birthdays, we do not just mourn the past or fear the relentless passing of time. We are forced to sit face to face with the heavy, silent presence of unmet expectations. We look at the empty chair at the table, the career milestone we have not yet reached, the financial stability that still feels just out of grasp, or the deep inner peace we thought we would have permanently mastered by now. We look at what is not there, and we instantly interpret that emptiness as a profound personal failure. We treat our unmet expectations as a definitive grading system, and we feel a deep, burning shame for falling short. Buddhist wisdom teaches us a deeply liberating perspective on the nature of emptiness. In Buddhist thought, emptiness is not a dark void of despair, it is the open space of infinite possibility. Our suffering arises not from the empty space itself, but from our fierce, tight attachment to how we demanded that space be filled. We suffer because we refuse to accept the life that is actually happening, constantly comparing it to a phantom life we imagined in our heads years ago. Buddhism reminds us that when we obsessively fixate on one single definition of happiness, we become completely blind to the quiet growth that is unfolding right in front of us. Imagine standing by the edge of a massive, quiet lake in the middle of the night. For years, you planned a grand, loud festival for this exact night. You expected the water to be filled with dozens of bright, floating lanterns, loud music, and joyous boats. But when you arrive, the festival has not happened. The water is completely still. You fall to your knees in deep grief, staring at the empty water, weeping for the missing lanterns. You are so consumed by the lack of noise and boats that you fail to realize the water is so perfectly still, it is beautifully reflecting the entire midnight sky. Because the lake is empty of the chaos you planned, it is finally able to perfectly hold the light of 1,000,000 stars. We do this in our modern lives constantly. We grieve the missing lanterns. We look at our lives on our birthday and we panic because we do not have the title, the house, or the perfect relationship we expected. We obsess over the specific things we demanded the universe give us by this specific age. We spend so much energy weeping over the missing boats that we completely miss the quiet, steady strength we have actually built. We miss the deep resilience we earned simply by surviving our hardest days. We miss the profound beauty of the quiet lake. Think about your own life right now. What unmet expectation is causing you the most panic today? What missing lantern are you still desperately weeping over? Is it possible that the empty space in your life is not a punishment, but a clearing? Pause. Breathe. Let the lake be still. Do not rush to fill the empty spaces of your life with anxiety or frantic action just to feel less behind. Sit quietly with the unmet expectations. You do not have to have everything built, perfectly packaged, and finalized by today. Your life is not a failed festival. It is a breathing, unfolding reality. When you finally stop fighting the unmet expectations, a profound internal shift happens. You stop living in the phantom, life of tomorrow, and you finally arrive exactly where you have always been. And this is where the final truth begins. What if the very day that used to bring you breathless panic could become the day you finally come home to yourself? When the calendar turns and the birthday arrives, you no longer need to brace for impact. You no longer need to stand in front of the mirror, measuring the painful distance between where you are and the invisible timeline you created so long ago. All that harsh measuring, all that frantic running, all that exhausting effort spent pushing the heavy river of time, it has not brought you closer to happiness. It has only kept you deeply distracted from the life that is actually happening around you. The deepest truth of Buddhist wisdom is that life only ever unfolds in the present moment. The past, with all its jagged stones of regret, is entirely gone. The future, with its rigid deadlines and phantom expectations, does not exist. There is only this single breath. There is only this exact place where you stand. To move through the panic of getting older without abandoning yourself is the greatest, quietest victory you can ever achieve. It means you no longer run out into the freezing storm just to find a quick distraction from your anxiety. It means you choose to stay in your own house, keeping the fire warm, holding space for whatever emotions arise. You look gently at the years that have passed. You forgive the younger version of yourself who stumbled in the pitch black of night. And you finally accept the beautiful, liberating truth. You are not behind. You were never behind. A tree does not rush the changing of its leaves. A river does not panic on its long journey to the ocean. They simply exist, trusting the deep, natural unfolding of time. You are allowed to do the exact same thing. You do not have to conquer the world by today. You do not have to have every answer perfectly wrapped in a bow. You only have to fully inhabit your own life. Think about the sheer resilience it took just to make it to this exact day. You have survived every storm, every heartbreak, every quiet night of overwhelming doubt. Do not let the illusion of a deadline steal the profound beauty of your own survival. You have arrived here, breathing, feeling, and still entirely capable of deep love and deep peace. That is not a failure. That is a quiet, beautiful triumph. When you finally stop demanding that your life look a certain way, a strange and wonderful freedom washes over you. You realize that your self-worth is not tied to a calendar. Your value is not determined by how much you have produced or who is clapping for you. Your true worth is found in your quiet ability to simply be, to witness the world, to breathe in the air, to respect yourself enough to stop chasing a phantom future and start deeply loving the reality of the present. Pause, breathe. Let the heavy weight of expectations finally drop from your tired shoulders. You have not wasted your time. Every wrong turn, every heavy stone, every empty space has brought you exactly to this moment of clear, open realization. The panic is fading. The quiet lake is still, and it is beautifully reflecting the light of exactly where you are. You have stopped fighting the current. You have stopped abandoning yourself. If these lessons touched your heart, share this video with someone who may need a little more peace today. You can let go now.